Well, you remember him for his 2 tours of duty in Toronto. You remember him for his lean back. You remember him for his... Is it fair to call it a waddle on the way to the pitcher's mound when it was time to make a change? He is the former manager of the Toronto Blue Jays. He is John Gibbons. What the hell are you doing with your life these days, man?
Hey, why don't you worry about tennis instead of worrying about golf and golf setup and all this other stuff, huh? What's up, boys?
I know you're
What's
going to be
going
missing
on?
Wimbledon this year, John. I know you're going to miss the fortnight.
Hey, I stay out of Europe anyway. I don't care what's going on, man. You'll never catch me over there in Europe.
I just realized how much I missed you, John. I just realized how much I missed you.
Hey, truthfulness, I miss you guys. That's for sure.
And Gib, believe me, McAuliffe's the only one of us two. That
Get out of here. Hey, first off, Gibby, before we get into all this, how are you doing? How's the family doing?
Good. Everything's good down here. You know, I'm still down here in San Antonio, Texas. You know, everybody's settled in. It's been crazy. You know, just what you guys are going through up there too. It looks like they kind of loosened some restrictions down here in Texas. I'm not sure what you guys are doing, but looks like things a little slowly are getting back to somewhat normal. You know, you hope and pray that it continues that way. So, but other than that, I'm doing pretty good. What about you guys? You guys hanging in there, I guess?
Yeah, I mean, we're doing the show from our basement in our living room on a 1-second delay and doing 3 hours on sports with no sports. But other than that, we're good. I mean, we're all healthy and knock on wood.
We're washing our hands, Gib.
Ratings were bad when things were normal. I can only imagine what your ratings are now.
They just went into the tank with this guest today.
Hey, once an asshole, always one. Sorry, bud.
Keeping it consistent, Gibbons.
Let's get to. I know I'm not the smartest man around. I'm more SMRT than I am smart. But I figured you'd head back to San Antonio. You'd enjoy the good life. Then I heard about this job with Atlanta and some interviews in Houston and maybe Boston. Like, are we going to see John Gibbons back on the field as a big league skipper soon?
Well, not if how those interviews went was any indication. I would say probably no. But no, I'm hoping I'm hoping I do. I missed it. I had that year off last year. Naturally, got cut loose, and I needed that. I needed to kind of re-energize a little bit. But I started missing it at the end of the year. And then, of course, Alex, came through for me again. He had me doing a really kind of a fun, cool job. But I did miss the field, the competition, that kind of thing. And a couple. There was you guys remember 4 or 5, maybe even 6 managing jobs open right after the season. I couldn't even get an interview for that. That disappointed me. I figured I had done enough where I could at least sit down in front of somebody. But then, of course, the Houston and the Boston thing sprung late, and I really thought I had a good shot. But that's the way it goes. I would love another shot at managing. If it never happens again, I'm fine. I'm happy. I gave it my best. But we'll see.
Gib, we mentioned the 2 tours of duty in Toronto. How different were the questions, were the themes of the interview from the first time you interviewed? Well, I guess the first time you didn't really interview for the job, but from the early stages of, the questions of being interviewed 10, 15 years ago to today. How different are the conversations that you would have with owners and or GMs?
Hey, Arash was kind of interesting. Houston called. AJ Hinch is a buddy of mine. I texted him the day when he got suspended, and then not long after that text, I saw where he got fired. And I texted him, see how he was holding up, and he calls me and says, he asked me if I wanted had any interest in that job, and if I did, he'd put in a good word for me. So that's kind of how that interview took place. And basically what I did there, I sat down with the owner, Jim Crane, loved the guy. He's all about winning, and basically we sat around and talked about life. That was basically it, just he and I. And then, of course, I went up to Boston. I think it was a couple weeks after that, in a totally different style. And I was very impressed with those guys. Chaim Bloom, I knew the name from Tampa. I knew what kind of job he did down there, but I never met him. And he's gonna do a heck of a job there, and I was really impressed. But it was, they're Houston didn't have a GM in place, so I mean, it's basically dealing with the owner. So, the nuts and bolts of a normal interview probably aren't taking place. But Boston was pretty heavy on. I met with different people from different departments, and so it was interesting. Two of the top teams out there, talent-wise, in the game, and so I felt pretty good about that. But two different ways of approaching it, probably at the time.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Does John Gibbons, the manager, have to adjust or rework what the narrative around you was? Or, like, I know when it ended in Toronto, it wasn't exactly the greatest of circumstances, but there were ideas that you were sort of anti-analytics, or that you wanted to stick with the older guys. Like, have you had to tear down those walls a little bit as you venture back out there?
Well, I don't know. I mean, time will tell, but I think I got kind of a bum rap on that. It was a little overblown.
Yeah.
I'm not anti-analytics. I just probably don't take it to the extreme. Some others do. And I like to debate things and ideas. And when you're the manager of a team and you're held accountable for what you do, you like to make your own decisions sometimes, because you're going to be judged off it.
Right.
So I think, we look back, we hit Batista lead off a couple of years. Troy Glass, my first go around, we played him at shortstop when we had a fly ball pitcher going. So we were, in a lot of ways, we were kind of ahead of it in some areas. We did the shifts, we did all that stuff. I just maybe handling the pitching staff, I just probably didn't take it to the extreme, as some do. But maybe I need to adjust. I don't know. Maybe the game. I think the game. I think in a few years will probably come back to the middle a little bit, kind of like the way we like our politics, huh, Rash? Not too far extreme right or too far left. We just kind of like it in the middle.
Right.
And that's I think baseball will kind of drift back there a little bit.
So what's the balance of it, Gib?
I better hope.
No,
so.
I do too. I think so too. I think we're going to go. People are going so far to the analytics that there's going to be people who understand how to trust the gut every once in a while, or understand a lifetime in baseball and understand the book, and then the marriage between the two will be very valuable.
Yeah, it is, because we're not dealing with robots. We're dealing with human beings.
Right.
Yeah. And I guess the question is, what becomes the balance? Like, I think of the Dodgers in their last few World Series runs. Rich Hill is cruising, but he goes through the order the second time, and no chance even in a World Series game, in a clinching game, are they putting him back out there for the third time through the order, and he gets pissed, and then the Dodgers end up losing. Then last year, Dave Roberts goes with his gut in an elimination game against Washington and throws Kershaw out there, up and down, and he gives up back-to-back home runs, and Washington goes out and wins it. It almost seems like if you go with the analytics, it can bite you, and then if you go with your gut, it can bite you too. Gib, what are you figuring out in terms of what you think the right balance is, in terms of going with the predetermined plan and then going with what's happening before your very eyes?
Well, how baseball is. It's not a perfect science. That's why, the outcomes are so. That's why you play the games, any sport. You can be rolling along in a close ball game. Next thing you know, one play happens. Look at that. You guys have been talking about the 2015 season, right? And we came back that the Texas Rangers had that inning, 3 errors. That doesn't happen in the big leagues. It doesn't happen in one inning.
Right.
But sometimes things happen in sports and in baseball that numbers can't explain. Nobody can explain. Where I kind of view it, the analytics and where I think we get carried away now is, with pitching on any given night. Let's say you got Marcus Stroman pitching. Okay, that particular night he's on. It's just the kind of night that it's kind of like the night that somebody hits for a cycle or does something or throws a no hitter or a perfect game, whatever it is. That's just that night. Something happens, and sometimes you get in the way of that and you try to interfere with that because the number says something. Sometimes I think. I'm not serious, but the baseball guys punish you. And I've had a number of games. I can look back and remember that I've yanked a starter, primarily my first go round, that's been rolling. He's getting up there and pitches, a little fatigued, but you take him out late in the game. It's almost like the other dugout goes, "Hey, thank you very much," and then something happens. You know, they do, because, you know, it kind of lets them off the hook. And, you know, if it's your night, it's your night. And if sometimes we try to interfere with that, we're in trouble. Now, I mean, I think we can all sit back and judge and tell when a guy hasn't got it. You know, if it's going to be a battle for him, and you go accordingly. But you know, I think sometimes you're best and you're smartest. You know, you just let the game play out. But, you know, because baseball, anyways, use numbers since it, you know, came into existence. You know, now it's just taken to the extreme. But, you know, everybody's looked at, you know, all the numbers. That's how they base most of their decisions. You know, when they say gut decisions, sometimes I think that gets misconstrued. You know, you throw in your ideas, your experiences, what you've seen, knowing this particular player, knowing how the game's going, knowing all the different things. Then you make your decision. It doesn't mean you're just winging it. You know.
Any baseball fan knows the voice of John Gibbons, who's joining us here on Tim and Sid. You brought up 2015, and I know you appeared on the watch party for Game 5 of the ALDS and Sportsnet and praised home plate umpire Dale Scott. He explained his side of the story and how he overturned his call, and all I could think of while I was watching that was, one, how in the good name of Nelson Liriano did John Gibbons stay relatively calm in that moment? And two, is that the craziest inning of baseball you've ever seen in your life?
Oh yeah, there's no. Well, you know what? I was, the I've been actually involved with, and it's, you know, it was a playoff game, and it was a final game, win or go home. But you know, I was with the Mets, not as an active player in '86, and so I was there for that game comeback. Yeah. You know, that shouldn't have happened, but it did. But yeah, you can't explain some of those things. You know, and at the time, I don't know how I guess remaining calm. I was just confused. I could not, for the life of me, remember seeing that play, and I thought it had to be a dead ball. You know, I went out there and was talking with Dale, and they were confused. And it's one of those plays, I think, that even umpires, you know, that's their profession, their job. They don't see certain plays very often, if at all, and for a number of years. So when it happens, I mean, they got to jog their memory too, you know, to make sure they get it right. So I mean, I think that's basically what happened, and they did end up getting it right after they talked it out, which is the important thing. But I tell you what, if that game had gone the other way, I don't care whether you get it right or not. I think we'd all still be there, man. Still trying to get out of that place alive.
Yeah. Arash, are you there? I think we've lost Arash Madani. I think we lost Arash Madani. I know he wanted to follow up on that Mets team, though, because that, like, as you said, the Mets team, I thought, well, yeah, that's just as – like, what was that like on that Mets team in that era? Like, what's the ride home after a game like that?
Well, I tell you, everything you've heard about that team, and I spent I spent a lot of time going up and down for a couple of years, and then that '86 team when they won it all, I spent 2 months up, August and September, and then stayed through the playoff with them. But everything you hear about that team, I guarantee you is correct. It was a wild bunch, great talent, great baseball players, put it that way. Mm-hmm. And they came to play every night, and they came to play to win. Now, and they would nobody liked them. You know, they were Batista, Hosey would have been perfect on the team. Donaldson would have been perfect. The guys on that team with that same kind of personality, you know.
Yeah.
And
go get it.
But I tell you what, they fought each other. They fought the other team. But you know, they were just such a good baseball team with a little bit of everything, and it was meant to be. They should have won that year, you know. But yeah, you know, I mean, those plane rides were a little bit wild, you know. And I can remember coming back from that, you know, the division series against the Houston Astros after that long 18, 19 inning game, whatever it was, and that plane was pretty tore up, you know. And then I know the team got a nice bill from, I think it was Continental back then. I do know that for a fact. So yeah, it was kind of a no holds barred, anything goes. We'll keep it at that.
Yeah. So the story
I was the fly on the wall.
Oh, right. I bet you were. Just an innocent little bystander.
22-year-old square-jawed Gibby.
Hey, where did Where have you disappeared there?
Oh, man. The analytics department didn't have my microphone going properly. I needed to get high performance on the case, Skip. So the 86 Mets, they're up 3-2. They're in the Astrodome against Houston because in those days the Astros were in the NL. And if they don't win, they have to face Mike Scott in Game 7, who at that time was untouchable. And they're down 6-3 in the 9th inning, and Lenny Dykstra gets things going. Then Mookie Wilson. The next thing you know, a 3-run deficit. The Mets put up 4 runs, and they end up winning the game. And Gib, as the story goes, yeah, like it was a full destruction of the plane. Like they were ripping seats out, and a food fight erupted. And the wives were on the plane, and they were getting in and all the fun, and there was no shortage of champagne. Is all of that true?
Hey, Arash, I guarantee it was just like one of your parties, big man.
I don't know.
Hey, the plane was flyable. It made it back, but yeah, it needed to be cleaned up, I think.
Oh, man. I know how the margaritas and pina coladas go down in South Texas there in San Antonio, too, Gib.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. That's funny.
Not lying when we say we miss you. We wish you could do this way more often. Don't be a stranger and stay well out there, okay?
Yeah. They're paying me. I'll do it more often. What are we missing here?
Yeah, we're gonna talk to the higher ups.
I miss you guys up there. You need anything, you holler.
We will. Take care, Gibby.
All right, boys.